Being the most formidable entity across 17 galactic sectors comes with an unexpected downside. Absolutely no one dares to tell you when you're acting like a total fool. Picture this. I was settled in what humans call a café, a quaint spot where they gather to drink caffeine-laden liquids, striving to blend in as a nondescript Earth businessman. My holographic disguise was running at full capacity to mask my true form, a 9-foot-tall being of glowing crystal and light, with the appearance of an average Joe, a concept I gleaned from their media. A voice piped up near where my holographic shoulders should be. "Hey, is this seat taken?" I swiveled to see a human woman, probably in her early 20s. She held one of those large mugs they prefer for their coffee, and her hair was a bright, unnatural green, twisted into what I've learned is called a messy bun. "No, it's free," I replied through my voice modulator. "Please, go ahead." She plopped into the chair with the elegance of a plummeting asteroid, yet didn't spill any of her drink. "Thank you. Everywhere else is packed, and I've got a huge project due in a few hours. I'm Juniper, yes, like the tree. My parents were hippies." I processed the term hippie, a cultural movement that embraced peace, love, and certain herbal practices. "Nice to meet you, Juniper." Think, what's a typical human name? Blake, truly inspired, oh great emperor. "Blake's a cool name," she remarked, already setting up one of their rudimentary computing devices, a laptop. "What's got you in the daily grind on this chaotic Monday?" At this point, any rational galactic emperor would fabricate an excuse and depart promptly. Limiting interactions with the locals was the primary rule of our surveillance mission, after all. But this human's genuine, unfiltered manner intrigued me. In my usual role, people are constantly pandering and leaping to follow my commands. This was oddly refreshing. "Just taking a break from work," I responded, which wasn't entirely untrue. Overseeing an interstellar empire could be considered work. "Same here." "Well, less of a break, more of a last-ditch effort to wrap up my thesis before my professor decides to end me." Metaphorically, though Dr. Henderson's glare could probably flatten a squirrel, her dramatic flair made me laugh, an actual genuine laugh. "What's your thesis on?" "It's about the theoretical feasibility of faster-than-light travel and what that could mean for human civilization," she explained, sipping her coffee. I almost choked on my own drink, a chai latte, which curiously mirrored a favorite beverage from my home planet. The irony was too rich. Me, an alien ruler who routinely hops between stars, chatting with a human theorizing about the mere possibility of such journeys. "That's quite a topic," I managed to reply, "right? People think I'm nuts for even bringing it up. But check this out." She spun her screen toward me, revealing a set of complex equations that, I noted with a mix of humor and admiration, were only about 40% incorrect. If we consider the possibility of manipulating spacetime directly rather than aiming to surpass light speed in conventional space. For the next hour, I found myself wrapped in the most intriguing conversation I'd had in centuries. I played the role of a skeptic, tactfully highlighting gaps in her theories, careful not to disclose that I literally had faster-than-light tech. Well, an emergency transport beacon, technically, but the principles were similar, tucked away in my pocket. "But what about the energy requirements?" I asked, genuinely curious about how she'd address this formidable challenge. She jabbed her coffee cup in my direction, triumphant. "That's where quantum vacuum fluctuations come in. Imagine if we could tap into zero-point energy." Her excitement was contagious, and before I knew it, I was leaning forward, entirely forgetting my carefully honed imperial posture. Somehow, this human had pieced together key concepts of interstellar travel through sheer theoretical work. Some of her ideas were wildly off, like her suggestion that would turn a ship inside out and likely spawn a black hole, but the essence of her thinking was surprisingly sound. "You know, Blake," she finally paused, catching her breath, "you're really good at this. Are you a physicist or something?" "Or something," I replied cryptically, allowing myself a slight smile. "Let's just say I have some experience with advanced transport technologies." She raised an eyebrow. "Ooh, mysterious. Don't tell me you're working on some classified government project." If only she knew that I was technically engaged in a classified extraterrestrial government project. "Have you ever been fully aware that you're making a disastrous choice but kept moving forward anyway, as if steering a ship straight into an asteroid in slow motion?" That was exactly how I felt when I heard myself say, "Actually, I have some free time tomorrow if you'd like to discuss your theories a bit more. What on all 7 quantum planes am I doing?" My rational mind screamed, "You're the emperor of the Nexus Confederation. Free time doesn't exist. You have appearances, negotiations, and an entire species counting on you to stabilize their sun before it implodes next week." But Juniper's face brightened, reminiscent of dawn over the crystalline fields of lawn. "Really? Oh my gosh, that would be incredible. Most people check out after 5 minutes of me rambling about quantum mechanics." "Their loss," I replied, meaning it more than I cared to admit. "I find your insights refreshing." My internal voice grew increasingly frantic. You know what else is refreshing? Not instigating an interplanetary crisis. Same time tomorrow? She was already packing up her laptop, her thesis breakthrough apparently complete. And thanks for listening to my monologue. You're a fantastic listener, Blake. The way she said my fabricated name made me feel a pang of guilt. That was unexpected. Emperors aren't supposed to feel guilt. That's what ministers are for. My pleasure, I replied, watching Juniper practically bounce out of the cafe, her green hair swaying in her wake. Barely a second after she'd left, my communicator, concealed as a human smartwatch, buzzed urgently. Your Imperial Magnificence, came the strained voice of Grand Advisor Talix. We have an immediate situation. When don't we? I muttered, before sighing and clearing my throat. Report, the Zion delegation is threatening to exit the Confederation unless you personally oversee their trade negotiations with the Regans. They demand an audience within the next solar cycle. I pinched the bridge of my holographic nose. The Zions are perpetually threatening to leave. Last month, it was because they'd been served the wrong hue of energy crystals at the summit. Yes, sire, but Talix, that's what I pay you an obscene amount of quantum credits for. Invoke Executive Protocol 37B if necessary. Talix hesitated. The one that broadcasts their personal holograms galaxy-wide? That's 37A. B is the one where we temporarily disable their gravity generators until they're ready to be reasonable. Ah, right, very good, sire. But what shall I say about your absence? I glanced at the empty seat Juniper had occupied moments ago. Tell them I'm conducting crucial research on an emerging civilization's approach to faster-than-light travel. It wasn't entirely untrue, just mostly. The following day found me back at the daily grind, precisely 11 minutes early, nursing another chai latte and genuinely wondering if I had finally lost my crystalline mind. I'd rescheduled 3 planetary alignment ceremonies and redirected the management of an asteroid belt to be here. Juniper burst through the cafe door at exactly 9:47 a.m., looking as though she hadn't slept since the dawn of this era. Her green hair had escaped her bun in every conceivable direction, and she clutched her laptop as if it held the mysteries of the cosmos. Blake, you won't believe what happened. She practically collapsed into the chair across from me, somehow managing to speak, unpack her laptop, and order a triple-shot espresso from a passing barista in a single breath. I had the wildest breakthrough last night. I was thinking about what you said, the energy requirements, and it just hit me. We're approaching this all wrong. She spun her laptop around, revealing a rough sketch of something that made me choke on my drink for the second time in as many days. It was unmistakable to anyone familiar with the technology, a basic outline for a quantum fold generator. It wasn't precisely what we used for interstellar travel, but the core concept was glaringly there. Juniper, I said, forcing my voice to remain calm, where did you come up with this? That's the best part. I had this crazy dream after I left yesterday. I was floating in space, but instead of me moving, space itself was bending and folding around me. Picture this. You're a point on a piece of paper, and instead of traveling across it, you just fold the paper so the 2 points you want to reach connect. Her hands animatedly illustrated the concept, and I stared at her, realizing with growing astonishment that she had intuited a foundational principle of faster-than-light travel, and I, in some convoluted way, had become part of her inspiration. A cold shiver ran through my core processor. That was exactly how our drives functioned. Somehow, my presence had influenced her dreams. It wasn't entirely unprecedented for my species to accidentally project quantum resonance patterns, but typically only under conditions of intense emotion. Oh no, that's fascinating, I managed, while my internal systems scrambled to run diagnostics. My quantum harmonic stabilizer was overloading, operating at a baffling 143% above normal. I was inadvertently broadcasting knowledge of faster-than-light travel straight into her subconscious. I know, right? Juniper continued, oblivious. It probably sounds totally insane, but it's not insane at all. I cut in before catching myself and immediately regretted it as she fixed me with an intensely curious gaze. Really? Because my professors always say, your professors, I replied, choosing my words very carefully, might not be considering every possibility. Juniper leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Blake, who exactly are you? Because ever since yesterday, I can't shake the feeling that you know way more about this than you're letting on. Well, your Imperial Highness, my internal monologue quipped, you've really cornered yourself now, haven't you? I opened my mouth to brush it off, laugh, say anything except what happened next. My holographic projector glitched, with my heightened quantum resonance. For exactly 2.3 seconds, Juniper saw me as I truly was, a towering, crystalline figure with softly glowing appendages and a crown of pure electromagnetic energy. Her coffee cup slipped from her hand, hitting the floor with a splash that seemed to echo through the silent cafe. She stared, eyes wide, completely transfixed. "Oh," she said, voice barely audible. "Oh wow, that explains a lot. There's no handbook titled How to Be a Supreme Galactic Ruler 101 that covers what to do when your disguise fails in the middle of a crowded Earth cafe, revealing your true form to a genius physicist who's already dangerously close to cracking faster than light travel." Juniper kept staring, oblivious to the growing puddle of coffee at her feet. Around us, the other customers continued their conversations, oblivious thanks to my reality distortion field, a nifty device that makes humans see whatever they expect to see. To them, we probably just looked like two regular people on a normal coffee date. So I began, fully aware that I had absolutely no idea what to say next. Was there a standard protocol for this? Apologies for unintentionally embedding quantum mechanics into your dreams. Didn't quite seem right. "You're an alien," she whispered, before wrinkling her nose, as though testing the words for realism. "That sounds so stupid out loud. But you are, aren't you? A real, actual extraterrestrial being?" I nodded, my holographic disguise now back in place. "Yes, that's correct. And all that stuff about faster than light travel, that's real, too?" She was practically bouncing in her seat, eyes wide with excitement, before quickly covering her mouth with her hand and glancing around, as if realizing just how monumental this revelation was. "Holy freaking Schrödinger," she murmured, equal parts amazement and disbelief lighting up her face. Sorry, I should probably be more discreet about the whole alien in a coffee shop thing, right?" She grinned, and I couldn't help but chuckle. Of all the possible reactions to learning you're chatting with an alien, sheer scientific enthusiasm was not what I'd anticipated. "You're handling this surprisingly well," I noted. "Are you kidding? This is literally the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me. Sure, I might be experiencing a mild existential crisis," but she trailed off, her head tilting in thought. "Wait, if you're an alien with faster than light travel, what are you doing hanging out in a coffee shop in downtown Seattle? Would you believe I'm on a cultural observation mission?" I shrugged. "Humans have a fascinating relationship with caffeinated beverages." She gave me a skeptical look. "Try again, Blake." I sighed. "All right, fine. Truthfully, I needed a break from being." She gestured at me with both hands. Which begs the question, who exactly is me? Her eyes sparkled with curiosity as she leaned forward. "Don't say it," my internal voice pleaded. "Just don't," but I ignored it. "I am the Emperor of the Nexus Confederation, Supreme Ruler of 17 galactic sectors, and Protector of the Quantum Realm," I admitted, and immediately wished I could warp reality enough to disappear. Juniper blinked, then blinked again. "No way, I said, using one of Earth's charming colloquialisms. "You're telling me I've been explaining theoretical physics to basically a space emperor? If it helps, you were only about 40% off in your theories." "Only 40%? Her face lit up with pride, which quickly shifted to suspicion. "Wait, did you give me that breakthrough last night? The dream about folding space?" About that," I shifted uncomfortably. "Sometimes, under certain emotional conditions, my species can inadvertently project quantum resonance patterns." I trailed off, realizing where this was going, but Juniper, quick on the uptake, put it together anyway. Her eyes widened with a knowing glint. "Oh my god, Space Emperor or not, you were totally excited to talk science with someone, weren't you?" "I was not excited," I corrected her with all the imperial dignity I could muster. "Merely intellectually stimulated by our discussion." "Aha!" She pointed a finger at me, grinning. "You're lonely, aren't you? I bet being a space emperor doesn't exactly give you a lot of downtime to chat about quantum mechanics." Before I could think of a suitably regal retort, my communicator buzzed insistently. I glanced at it, barely holding back a groan. "Speaking of imperial responsibilities, trouble in the galaxy?" she asked, amused. "The Zions are threatening civil war because we disabled their gravity generators." Her eyes widened in astonishment. "You did what now?" "It's standard diplomatic procedure. They'll settle down once they get tired of floating around their capital." Juniper burst into laughter, then quickly covered her mouth, glancing around at the other patrons. "Wait, so you're telling me that advanced alien civilizations still throw tantrums?" "You have no idea," I replied, feeling a rare sense of camaraderie as she laughed. "Last year, the Andromedans nearly sparked an interstellar war because someone insulted their poetry." "Please tell me you're joking." "I wish I were. I had to sit through 17 hours of their epic poetry recitations to restore diplomatic ties. It was an ordeal." Juniper was barely containing her laughter now. "So basically, you're saying that humans aren't that far behind in terms of emotional maturity?" "Oh, you're still behind," I replied swiftly, "but perhaps not as far as we originally thought." She opened her mouth mouth to respond, but was cut off by another insistent buzz from my communicator. This time, Grand Advisor Talix's miniature holographic form flickered above my watch, thankfully visible only to me. Your Imperial Magnificence, the situation has escalated. The Zixians are threatening to release their entire stock of quantum-enhanced pet creatures into the gravity-free environment. The chaos could rip a hole in space-time. I pinched the bridge of my holographic nose. And who, precisely, authorized them to possess quantum-enhanced pets? That would be your third cousin, sire. The one operating that questionable genetic lab in the Crab Nebula. Of course it was. I gave Juniper an apologetic look. I'm sorry, but I need to handle this. To my surprise, she nodded, understanding. Go save the galaxy from gravity-defying pets. But then she hesitated, a spark of boldness crossing her face. Will you come back? I still have so many questions. About quantum mechanics, space travel, alien civilizations, well, everything. I knew the correct answer was no. I knew Imperial protocol would dictate erasing her memory and never setting foot in this cafe again. Yet, against all reason, I found myself saying, same time tomorrow? Her smile could have powered an entire star system. It's a date. I mean, not a date, obviously, because you're an alien emperor and that would be weird. But you know what I mean. As I prepared to teleport back to my ship, I couldn't help but wonder what the Imperial Council would think if they knew their supreme ruler was arranging to spend more time in a coffee shop talking physics with a human. On second thought, perhaps it was best not to wonder about that at all. One thing they never mention in Interstellar Empire 101. Paperwork is paperwork, no matter which galaxy you rule. I spent the next 6 hours dealing with the Zion crisis, which involved signing digital quantum forms in triplicate and enduring the Zion ambassador's verbose speeches on the dignity of a species and its sacred relationship to gravitational forces. Eventually, we restored their gravity on the condition that they kept their quantum pets in check, though I did insist they submit a formal apology to the space-time continuum, if only for my own satisfaction. Throughout it all, my thoughts kept drifting back to that tiny coffee shop on Earth, and to Juniper with her relentless questions and casual disregard for my imperial rank. It was unsettling. Refreshing, yes, but deeply unsettling. Your Magnificence? Talix's voice jolted me back to reality, laced with concern. You seem to be smiling, Your Magnificence, Talix noted, eyeing me with concern. Shall I summon the Imperial medical team? What? No, I'm fine, I said, attempting a dignified tone. I was merely reflecting on the human. On the human? He repeated, brows furrowing. I sat straighter in my crystalline throne. I don't know what you're implying. Sire, with respect, your quantum resonance patterns have fluctuated significantly over the last 48 hours. Additionally, you've been humming something, a human song, I believe, about bucks of stars. It's the name of a coffee establishment, I muttered, realizing my mistake too late as Talix's look grew even more concerned. Your Magnificence, may I remind you of Protocol 7-249B, which explicitly prohibits both sharing advanced knowledge and forming personal attachments with pre-FTL civilizations. I waved a luminescent appendage dismissively. I am not forming attachments. I'm conducting advanced cultural research. In a coffee shop, why does everyone say it like that? I grumbled. Before Talix could reply, a priority alert flashed across my neural interface. The Andromedans were calling for an urgent conference, something about a detected disturbance in the quantum field near Earth, hinting at unauthorized tech transfer. Oh no, I stiffened. My resonance patterns. Juniper's dream. Her sudden advancements in FTL theory. Someone had noticed. I must get back to Earth. Immediately. But, Your Magnificence, Talix sputtered as I hurried past. You're scheduled to judge the annual Galactic Bake-Off in 10 minutes. The Plutonians have been preparing their quantum Soul for weeks. Reschedule it, but the Soul exists in a state of quantum uncertainty. It literally can't be rescheduled. Then eat it yourself, I called back, activating emergency teleport protocols. Moments later, I materialized in an alley near the daily grind. I adjusted my holographic disguise and rushed inside, spotting Juniper already at a table surrounded by equations, her eyes bright with excitement. Blake, or Your Imperial, Majesty? Sorry, I have no idea how to greet space emperors in coffee shops. Blake is fine, I said quickly, sliding into the chair across from her. We need to talk. Perfect timing. I've made incredible progress. After you left yesterday, I started focusing on quantum resonance patterns, and Juniper, I interrupted, you need to stop. She blinked, clearly startled. Stop what? The research, the equations, asterisk everything asterisk right now. But why? I'm so close to causing an interstellar diplomatic crisis. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. The Andromedans have detected an unauthorized tech transfer near Earth. They are not happy. Her eyes widened. You mean the ones who almost declared war over bad poetry? The very very same. Wait, but I don't get it. I figured most of this out myself. Well, mostly. Maybe you did accidentally quantum project some things into my dreams, but exactly, I said, rubbing a hand over my holographic face in frustration. My resonance projections have gone off the charts, thanks to certain conditions. Certain conditions? Wait, you mean, oh my god. Her eyes lit up with the thrill of understanding. You were excited to talk science with me, weren't you? I cleared my throat, attempting to retain a shred of imperial dignity. It was merely intellectual stimulation. Aha, she grinned. You're lonely, aren't you? Being the emperor doesn't leave much time for quantum chit-chat. I opened my mouth to protest, but my communicator buzzed once more, snapping me back to reality. Talix's voice crackled through. Your magnificence, the Andromedans are waiting. They're growing more suspicious by the second. I exhaled. Juniper, as much as I enjoy our conversations, I need you to promise that you'll put your research on hold. For now. She glanced down at her notes, then back at me, a thoughtful look crossing her face. All right, Blake, promise. On one condition. I raised an eyebrow. And what would that be? You keep coming back to answer all my questions properly, because I don't plan on stopping forever. I found myself smiling, despite everything. You drive a hard bargain, Juniper. All right, it's a deal. Her grin was triumphant, as if she just won a victory over the Emperor of the Nexus Confederation himself. As I left to placate the Andromedans, a thought surfaced, unbidden. Perhaps she just had. Don't you see? By helping you understand FTL technology, even accidentally, I've violated about 17 different protocols. The Andromedans could push for sanctions against Earth. Juniper's face went pale. They can actually do that? They can try, I replied, carefully omitting the part about the 7th Fleet I'd stationed near the Andromedan border, just in case things got out of hand. We need to tread carefully. If they manage to prove I deliberately aided Earth's tech advancement, then what? I hesitated. Best case, I lose my throne. Worst case, Earth gets quarantined from all interstellar contact for the next 1,000 years. She stared into her coffee, processing the gravity of the situation. When she looked up, a determined glint had replaced her shock, and that look alone was enough to make me distinctly nervous. So what you're saying is, I need to figure this out on my own, without any help from you? No, I'm saying you need to stop entirely, but if I discover FTL travel independently without alien help, that would be totally legal, right? Technically, yes, but, and you've already said I was only 40% off in my theories. Juniper, don't, so, I just need to correct that 40% using purely human methods. She looked at me, her grin widening. I groaned. You're not going to stop, are you? No, but I will be more discreet. No more writing equations in public places. And maybe we should stop meeting here, just in case the Andromedans are keeping an eye on us. That might be wise, I admitted, feeling an unexpected pang at the thought of not meeting her again. Great, so you can come to my apartment instead. I have a whiteboard and everything. That is absolutely not what my communicator buzzed again, and Talix's voice came through, sounding uncharacteristically panicked. Your Magnificence, the Andromedan ambassador is demanding an immediate audience, and the Plutonian Sul has achieved quantum sentience and is threatening to leak state secrets. Juniper bit her lip, trying hard not to laugh. Go, she said, gathering her notes. Handle your quantum dessert. But this isn't over. I'm figuring out FTL if it's the last thing I do. It might be the last thing you do, I muttered, but I couldn't stop the smile tugging at my mouth as I prepared to teleport back to my ship. Just as I was about to go, Juniper called out, "Hey, Blake, or whatever your real name is. Yes, thanks for being my friend. Even if you're a terrible space emperor who accidentally leaks classified tech through his dreams." I opened my mouth to argue that I was, in fact, a phenomenal space emperor, but she was already gone, leaving behind the lingering scent of coffee and a distinct sense of dread that I might be in far too deep. Have you ever had one of those days where you're juggling an impending interstellar war, a sentient dessert with a vendetta, and the looming threat of your human friend inadvertently starting a diplomatic crisis? No? Just me, then. The Andromedan ambassador was waiting in my throne room when I arrived, their tentacles arranged in what my database identified as the extreme diplomatic displeasure configuration. Emperor Kai Zerth, the Andromedan ambassador burbled through their translation matrix. We demand an explanation for the quantum anomalies detected in the Earth sector. Quantum anomalies? I repeated, feigning ignorance with as much imperial dignity as I could muster. I'm sure there's a perfectly reasonable. The Sul knows all. A booming voice interrupted from the dining hall. Right, I'd almost forgotten about that disaster. The Plutonian quantum Sul had somehow achieved not only sentience but mobility, and it now floated ominously in the doorway, pulsating with a glow that could only be described as culinary eldritch energy. "I have witnessed the Emperor's transgressions," it proclaimed. "I have seen the human girl and the forbidden knowledge. Oh, be quiet, I snapped, temporarily forgetting every diplomatic rule I'd ever learned. You're literally a dessert that knows way too much. The Andromedan ambassador's tentacles undulated with intrigue. Human girl, forbidden knowledge, Emperor Kai's Earth. Are you interfering with Earth's technological development? Absolutely not, I replied, with more confidence than I felt. I've been conducting a perfectly routine observation mission with no unauthorized tech transfer whatsoever. As if on cue, my communicator buzzed, and Juniper's message flashed across my neural interface. Blake, I figured it out. The missing 40%. It was so simple. We just need to invert the quantum polarity of the spatial fold while maintaining a resonance with background vacuum energy. Also, thanks to your dream projections, I realized we can use nested fields to avoid temporal feedback. Isn't this exciting? The Andromedan ambassador's tentacles shifted to an alarming shade of puce. Would you care to explain that? They demanded. I was about to dive into a desperate attempt at damage control when another alert flashed. The Zion, still nursing a grudge over the gravity generator debacle, had allied with the Andromedans and was demanding a formal inquiry into my activities on Earth. Behold, the Sul chimed in, glowing ominously. The Emperor's quantum resonance patterns reveal his emotional attachment. That's it, I muttered under my breath. Desserts are officially banned from the galaxy. More alerts flooded in. The Regans were protesting over not being included in Earth's situation. The Centaurs were summoning an emergency council meeting, and the Plutonians were demanding emotional compensation for their traumatized Sul. I had to take drastic action. I opened a direct line to Juniper's phone. Meet me at the Café. Now, 20 minutes later, we were seated at our usual table, Juniper listening with a mix of curiosity and excitement as I explained the impending diplomatic crisis she had, unwittingly, helped to create. So let me get this straight, she said slowly. Because I figured out FTL travel too accurately, the aliens want to quarantine Earth? Essentially, yes, she threw up her hands. But that's absurd. I did figure it out mostly on my own. The dreams just helped me connect some dots. Yes, but those dots came directly from my subconscious quantum resonance projections. That's what the Andromedans and Zions are upset about. They can argue it's indirect tech transfer. Juniper tapped her fingers thoughtfully. So, what you're saying is, Earth is in trouble because you're accidentally projecting alien tech specs into my dreams? More or less, I sighed. Okay, so why don't we just say I invented it independently? I'll write up a paper, make it look human, good old trial and error. No one has to know about you. I stared at her, feeling a mix of admiration and horror at her audacity. You realize that if anyone suspects even a hint of alien assistance, Earth will be cut off for millennia. They'll turn your world into an interstellar museum exhibit. She smiled, undeterred. Then we'll have to be very, very convincing, won't we? Her determination was contagious, and despite the overwhelming odds, I couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. If anyone could turn this around, it was Juniper. All right, I relented, but we need a cover story. Something plausible, something that would convince even the Andromedans. And, she added with a smirk, we'll have to keep your dessert from ratting us out. As ridiculous as it sounded, this was our only shot. Try explaining that to the Andromedan diplomatic corps, I sighed. They once demanded a formal apology from a nebula for being insufficiently purple. Okay, but what if? Juniper's voice trailed off, her eyes widening as she looked over my shoulder. Blake, why is there a glowing Sul floating outside the window? I have found the human, it announced loudly, drawing curious looks from nearby pedestrians. Fortunately, my reality distortion field made them see nothing more unusual than a particularly zealous street performer. Oh, for the love of, I began, only to be interrupted by a sudden flash as multiple diplomatic holograms materialized around our table. The Andromedan ambassador loomed closest, their tentacles twitching in accusation. We have you now, Emperor Kai's Earth, conspiring with humans sharing advanced technology. This violation of Protocol 7-249-B will not go unpunished. Juniper took a calm look around at the various holographic diplomats, then glanced at me and finally at her coffee cup. Setting it down with great deliberation, she rose to her feet. Excuse me, she said in a voice that somehow sounded both polite and profoundly intimidating, but I'd like to make a formal presentation to the assembled representatives. This is highly irregular, the Andromedan ambassador protested. Oh, I'm sorry, Juniper replied smoothly. I thought advanced civilizations might be interested in hearing how a primitive human independently developed FTL theory using nothing but math, physics, and an alarming amount of caffeine. She opened her laptop, casting her equations onto the cafe wall. See this section here? This is where I was 3 weeks ago, before I met our crystalline friend. And this, she gestured to another part, pure human theoretical physics. Sure, some unusual dreams helped me cross-check my work, but every calculation and logical step is thoroughly documented and mathematically sound. The gathered diplomats exchanged surprised glances and whispered among themselves. And furthermore, she continued, gaining momentum, if you examine the quantum resonance patterns in my equations, you'll find they deviate distinctly from Confederation theories. I approached spatial folding by treating spacetime as a semi-permeable membrane rather than a rigid framework, which is far more efficient. The Andromedan ambassador's tentacles drooped in astonishment. That's remarkably innovative. Of course it is, the Sul interjected, apparently having taken Juniper's side. The humans' culinary science is equally astonishing. Have you tried their tiramisu? And that was it. I couldn't hold back any longer. Laughter escaped me, echoing across the cafe. The Andromedan ambassador looked both perplexed and oddly intrigued, muttering something about reassessing Earth's scientific potential. Meanwhile, Juniper gave a triumphant smirk. Well, representatives, she said, glancing around the circle of diplomats, I hope this clears things up. Humans are more than capable of scientific innovation without needing external assistance. The diplomats mumbled their agreement, seemingly placated for the moment. The Sul, still hovering, added a final note of approval. Yes, I too am convinced of the humans' brilliance. I shall report back to the Galactic Culinary Council immediately. With the crisis averted, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of pride. Juniper had somehow managed to do the impossible, turning a galactic diplomatic incident into an impromptu science lecture, and perhaps even securing Earth's reputation in the process. The scene was so surreal, a human grad student passionately defending her breakthrough physics to a group of alien diplomats, all while a sentient dessert extolled the virtues of Earth's cuisine, that any shred of my imperial decorum simply vanished. And then, something remarkable happened. The Andromedan ambassador began to laugh, a burbling, trilling sound that seemed to echo through their translation matrix. Then the Zion ambassador joined in. Before long, the entire cafe was alive with the laughter of alien voices, each species' version of amusement filtering through their translation devices in oddly harmonious cacophony. Perhaps, the Andromedan ambassador finally managed, their tentacles shifting into what my database identified as an expression of sheepish humility. We have underestimated the human's capacity for independent scientific progress. Does this mean Earth isn't going to be quarantined? Juniper asked, looking hopeful. I glanced at her, a new decision forming in my mind, one that would probably give Talix a fit. Better than that, I said, savoring the moment, I'm officially upgrading Earth status to Preon Observation Phase Alpha. Juniper's eyes widened in delight. Which means? It means I can act as Earth's scientific liaison to the Confederation. No more sneaking around in coffee shops. Yes, she punched the air, then quickly composed herself. I mean, that seems like a reasonable diplomatic development. The power of dessert brings peace to the galaxy, the Sul declared triumphantly. And you, I said, turning to it, are going back to the Plutonian Culinary Academy, where you belong, but I want to try more Earth foods. Fine, I relented, sighing. We'll stop for cheesecake on the way. With that, the diplomats' holograms winked out, marking the official end of the incident. Juniper turned to me, her grin wide with satisfaction. So, Your Magnificence, same time next week? I've got some ideas for improving your quantum drive efficiency. I matched her smile, feeling lighter than I had in ages. You know what? I wouldn't miss it for all the worlds in 17 galactic sectors. And that's how I ended up with a standing coffee date with Earth's first unofficial ambassador to the stars. The Confederation would never be quite the same. Then again, maybe that's exactly what it needed. Just don't tell Talix. He's still recovering from the Sul incident.